Let's get to the bottom of this. How strong is the god of lightning, Hajime Kashimo? And this video is apparently brought to you by the Kashimo is not a fraud lobby, Kashimo Low Diffs Yuta. And to be clear, that is his name, Kashimo Low Diffs Yuta. So thank you so much, man. Like, I don't know what to say. And that's a phrase that's come out of my mouth a lot recently, but just thank you so much for the support, man. I feel completely undeserving, but much, much appreciated. Alrighty, y'all. So the first thing we're going to do is go over what Kashimo brings to the table, and then based on that, kind of find his place in the world. So first things first is man is just extremely powerful. He completely fodderizes Panda, right? Basically one punches him down in the first form, and then just doesn't even break a sweat, taking him out completely after that. So let's go over, besides just the innate strength and speed that he shows, kind of the unique abilities that he showcases here. So the first thing we need to talk about is the property of his cursed energy. Similar to Hikari, he has like an effect just imbued into his cursed energy, and it's lightning. So when he strikes you, not only does the physical strike hit you, but his cursed energy kind of shocks you. Now, because of this unique trait, it allows Kashimo to do something else that is very powerful. So when he strikes you, or when he imbues cursed energy into an object, let's say, he can separate the positive and negative energy particles. And then at a point of his choosing, he can send the negative energy that he held back to like magnetize toward the positive energy that he imbued in his opponent or in an object, right? Which basically coalesces into a lightning strike that cannot miss because it's based on physics, right? And it's just going to zap on over to those positive charges. This lightning strike is very powerful. Again, it's compared to the can't miss attack of a domain expansion, and it one-shots Panda's most powerful form. Now, I do think it's worth mentioning that even though this is a can't miss attack, I do think it is possible to mitigate the damage somewhat. Because in this panel here, it appears as if the lightning bolt is going straight for Hikari's head, right? But Hikari is able to move a little bit and make it hit his arm instead. So it seems like that type of defense is manageable. So you can't avoid it altogether, but you can perhaps reduce the damage by, making it strike a less vital part of your body if you're fast enough. And like I mentioned, Kashimo can imbue these charges into inanimate objects as well, and then use this ability to recall them to himself, like Thor with Mjolnir. On top of all of that, Kashimo has shown to have a very high battle IQ. He's able to pick up on the nuances of Hikari's jackpot very quickly and adjust his battle plan accordingly. On top of that, he also literally makes chlorine gas in a make or break moment, and he does all of this keeping up with a jackpotted Hikari without ever using his curse technique. So the God of Lightning is an apt title. Pre-time skip, non-curse technique Kashimo beats everybody but the strongest dogs in the verse. I'd argue that he probably could have beaten Jackpot Hikari if the ocean hadn't have been nearby, but that's up for debate. But now let's talk about curse technique Kashimo. And as it's described here, it lets him turn himself into any phenomena by using his cursed energy. Doing so transforms his entire body. But because of this, it will deteriorate his body ultimately. So that is why he can only use it one time. And he saved this for Sukuna. So in this form, he can do everything he previously could, but all of his stats are far amped, he's far more agile, and he can literally transform his body to send out projectiles amongst other things, right? We were told any phenomena. So this form is extremely strong, right? So then why all the fraud watch allegations for Kashimo? Unfortunately, it's just a case of a bad matchup. Maybe he and Jogo can bond over that in the afterlife. But Kashimo went up against literally the top dog in the verse, Sukuna, and Sukuna in his true form at that. However, it is worth noting in terms of scaling here that this was not Sukuna at his best, even though he was in his true Heian era form. And we know this for a fact now, because he's coming off the tail end of his fight with Gojo. He doesn't have his RCT at full capacity, nowhere near it, in fact, and he doesn't have his domain expansion. Back when this first happened, we weren't sure if the Heian era form transformation fully healed him, and now we know that it did not. It fully healed his bodily injuries, but it did not heal his brain nor his RCT output. So even though Sukuna, even with all of those handicaps, is still the strongest person in the verse, it's not the same as the Sukuna that Gojo fought. So just because Kashimo got in a few good licks before he was taken out does not in any way put him over Gojo. So where does this curse technique Kashimo fall in the pecking order? And we are going to scale this with the curse technique version of him, because to do the non-curse technique version is kind of just hard because he's heavily handicapping himself, so there's just too many what ifs. So with curse technique version, he's clearly below Sukuna and he's clearly below Gojo. For everyone else, let me give a little bit of a background here. We're going to say pre-time skip and post-time skip. Because pre-time skip, everyone was far weaker than they are now. We know that Akotsu referred to as whatever they did as cheating. And I got a full video on that if you want more explanation there. But clearly they did something during that time that allowed them to grow exponentially. They are far, far stronger after this month. Now, I don't think Kashimo participated in whatever that training was, mostly because I just don't see it in his character. We know he's been hanging around all of them because he wants his shot at Sukuna, but I don't think he would have been like buddy-buddy training with Yuji and Akotsu in the weight room, like, let's all get stronger, right? I'm sure he did like his own training on his own, perhaps, but I really don't think whatever the cheating was, he was a part of. And all of that to say is that I don't think he exponentially grew during the past month. If he did, that honestly detracts from his performance against Sukuna even more, in my opinion. So I don't think he did. That being said, his strength here would have been the same as whenever he used the curse technique, even if it was, pre-time skip. That's the ultimate point I'm getting at. Your boy's yapping. So pre-time skip curse technique Kashimo, I think, beats almost everyone, even Akotsu, because I think that power jump that Akotsu got in the time skip was substantial. So I think even though Akotsu pre-time skip had the domain expansion, I think just the speed, the pure power that he would have gotten from this, he could have taken him out before really the domain would have been able to do its thing on him. So Kashimo low diffs Akotsu or Yuta, I hope you're happy with that answer, because that's basically the best you're going to get in this one. Now, post-time skip, how does curse technique Kashimo stack up? And I think, as I stated in the other video of the versus battle, Akotsu takes him in this version. Mostly because of the domain expansion, but also just the pure versatility that we know Akotsu has, and potentially all of the more curse techniques he has in preparation for this Sukuna battle. I almost want to say that Yuji beats curse technique Kashimo, but I'm not going to go there yet. So we still need to see a bit more from Yuji, but Yuji is a freak, man, the Demon King. But without a little bit more evidence, I guess I will give the edge out to curse technique Kashimo. Hikari is tough because we don't know how much he's progressed in that month, but considering he was able to keep up with Jackpot Hikari without his curse technique, I still would give the edge to Kashimo here, even post-time skip. Now, Maki is very interesting because, one, I think she could get the job done, especially with her Soul Split Katana. But what's interesting is Kashimo's lightning sure hit effect will work on Maki, dissimilar to domain expansion's sure hit effects, which wouldn't work on her. So if he is fast enough, which he probably is, to avoid her, I think he could ultimately take her down with the lightning strikes, or just, his electrical beast amber strikes. I don't know if those are sure hit necessarily, but we know at least the lightning is. So I think he could take her down. That would be a really interesting fight, probably really close. And then for your question on how would he fare, basically if he was in Akotsu's place versus Uro and Ryu, first thing I want to get out of the way is some people say that since Kashimo and Ryu were alive at the same time, that Kashimo beat Ryu because he was never challenged in his own era, right? But as you can see here, Kashimo was already like a really old man when he first heard about the prowess of Ryu. So they never fought back in the day. So I don't think you can automatically put him over Ryu. That being said though, especially if we're going to place Kashimo, who is using his curse technique in the place of Akotsu in those fights, I think he slams. I think he can beat both of them in the 1v1v1 and also separate one-on-ones. I know they both have domain expansions, but I think he can just blitz them in his curse technique form. Now, non-curse technique Kashimo in Akotsu's place, I think is a little different. I think he loses the 1v1v1, like he's not the ultimate victor. I think it would probably be Ryu. And then in separate 1v1s, same thing basically. I think Kashimo would beat Uro, but lose to Ryu. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. And finally, for what I would have done differently in the Kashimo Sukuna fight, I would have just liked to have seen more from this curse technique. You know, it had been built up so long as this mystery that I really wanted to see some amazing things from it. And that's not to downplay it. Like, it's obviously a very powerful technique, but we just didn't get to see much of it. You know, I would have liked to have seen some other applications of how he changed his body to utilize it. But, you know, we got what we got. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to let me know your 2 cents down in the comments. And again, special shout out to Kashimo Low Diffs Yuta. You're a legend.